It could be coming to a city near you, but if you live in New York, it is already coming to you. Did you know that New York City is now going to charge people for driving between certain streets? This is called congestion pricing. I kid you not. It's a real thing. They're also trying to bring it to Boston as well. So it could come to you. Pay attention to this. And we're going to talk about how this is actually not good for workers. Let's go ahead and bring this in.
Reduce carbon emissions, improve public.
I got to rewind this back. Sorry. Thank you.
Starting this summer, drivers will be charged a toll to enter what will be called the Congestion Relief Zone, Manhattan including and below 60th Street. Today, this area has some of the worst traffic in the country. Cars, trucks, buses, cabs, and emergency vehicles stuck in gridlock. Excessive traffic means hours of time wasted, missed appointments, and air pollution. It also means ambulances and fire trucks waste precious seconds responding to emergencies. The new Congestion Relief Zone is a transformative opportunity for New York to finally address gridlock, reduce carbon emissions, improve public health, boost the economy, and make the city a better, cleaner, and more pleasant place to be. The toll.
Pause for a second. So I've been trying to warn people about this, that this was coming. Basically, what they're trying to do is they're trying to remove as many cars off the roads as possible. One of the ways that they've done this here in Boston is that they have removed parking spaces. Like if you go to actually Cambridge, let's start with Cambridge. If you go to Cambridge, particularly near the MIT area in Cambridge, there used to be parking spots on Broadway near MIT. There used to be parking spots on Amherst Street near MIT. The university and the city decided to remove some of the parking because they don't want people to park there. In fact, they don't really want you driving there. What they want people to do is to take public transportation. The problem with public transportation, particularly here, is that it doesn't run 24 hours a day like it does in New York City. And then also, we don't have as many subway stops that New York City has. So it's become more complicated. They implemented bike lanes to reduce the size of the lanes for cars. Then they removed the parking spots. And now Boston City Council is also in talks to start congestion pricing here too. This is what I mean. It could come to you as well.
Revenue will be used to make more subway stations ADA accessible, modernize subway signals, buy electric buses, and generally improve transit. It's a win-win. Drivers will get to their destinations faster, and transit users will get better subway, bus, and train service. Find out more at congestionreliefzone.mta.info.
So the part that they said there, they said that transit users will get better service. You can give them better service now. You can give them better service without, like, I'm sorry, is this a problem? But you can give them better service now without having to implement that. Now, I want to talk about how this is going to hurt the workers, because this is the part I think that is very damning here. I want to show you where these zones are. Listen to this. The death of NYC congestion pricing. Let's just look at the maps here. How do people commute into Manhattan? 50% take the subway. So the yellow areas, that means that they're taking the subway right around here, right? The green dots are car, truck, and motorcycles. That's 15%. So what this shows you is that even in a city like New York, okay, not everyone is taking public transportation. Some people still have to either take their car, their truck, or motorcycle into the city. Now I want to explain to you why that is. I've lived in New York, and there are certain parts of New York that are not easily accessible to public transportation. If you talk to people that live in Queens, and Queens is huge, by the way, you guys know Queens is freaking huge. There are certain parts of Queens that do not have access to the subway. That's why it's not uncommon for people in Queens to have a car. Even when I lived in Brooklyn, I remember my street was still lined with cars. So depending on where you're going to work and depending on the public transportation that's available to you, it still may be easier for you to drive than to take public transportation. So again, this is assuming that everyone has access to public transportation, which they don't, even in New York City. In fact, in most cities in the United States, most Americans still drive to work. Now let's look at another chart. Move this down here. Transit commuters by metropolitan area. 45% of America's transit commuters live in New York and 1/3 live in the city itself. So you can just see this with your own eyes, right? So New York City, the largest amount of public transit users, next to Chicago, Boston, DC, LA, San Francisco, and Philly. So this goes to show you across the United States, we just don't have a robust public transportation system here. And part of that has to do with infrastructure. So there's that. We can scroll down here a little bit more. It says, yet in the US, it's extremely unusual for most workers to take public transportation. In 2022, only about 3.1% of Americans took trains or buses to their jobs. About 45% of those transit commuters lived in the greater New York area, Chicago, Boston, DC, LA, San Francisco, and Philly. So let's talk about this as well. We're going to get into this part about Governor Kathy Hochul. That's why it's so important when earlier this month, New York State Governor Kathy Hochul announced that America's first congestion pricing scheme would be indefinitely paused. The policy would have charged vehicles for entering the perpetually gridlocked streets of lower Manhattan, using the money raised to then fund many of the city's transit projects. Let me stop there for a second. So this is BS. I want everyone to understand how your tax dollars are being used. You already pay taxes to cover the public transportation. They should not charge for congestion transit, for you driving your car in those congested areas. They don't need to rely on that tax in order to give you better public transportation. You already pay for it. In this little scheme that a lot of these cities are doing, Mayor Wu tried to do this in Boston, where she said she was going to charge the restaurant owners in the North End more to have outdoor eating outside of their restaurants. And they fought her teeth and nail. And they told her, no, we already pay for this. How are you going to charge us more because you say you have to do more street cleaning in the area, but we already pay for that. Our taxes already pay for street cleaning. So how are you going to charge us more money? They fought that. So this is bullshit. Does everybody understand? This is BS. I want everyone to really take that home with you, because they do not need to charge you more money to give you better public transportation services. You already pay for it. It already comes out of your pocket. Now there's more. This hurts workers. Obviously, if you commute to work using your car, obviously that is going to hurt you. Now you have to pay more just to drive to work. And if I remember correctly, if this is including anything south of 60th Street, I think that would also include the Village. You know, a lot of people like to hang out in that area. I know I do. So there's that as well. So now you are making the workers pay more money because they have to drive to work. How is that right? How is that fair? And then we need to talk about a particular group of workers in particular. We need to talk about the rideshare workers, because I don't think a lot of people thought about this when they were voting on this in New York. What about everybody that works for Uber, Lyft, or drives a taxi? They also now have to pay the congestion price tax. Are you going to tell the Uber drivers and the Lyft drivers that they can't drive or pick people up in those areas? How is that going to hurt them? Is Uber and Lyft going to give them more money to cover that congestion fee? Or does the driver have to pay for it? You see, they didn't think about these things. And then how is that going to hurt the taxi business? Roger Meadows had some things to say to some of the lawmakers that you may have elected. The ones that were progressive, the ones that called themselves socialists, they were supposed to be for the workers. Here's one of the tweets I want to pull up because I think this is important. We should not be paying out-of-pocket expenses for these services. Begin with our taxes already paying for them. Therefore, Metro cards, Easy Passes, the Long Island Railroad, Metro North tickets should not exist. On top of that, look at where we fall on the map. It shows you we have the money. Maybe they should think of auditing the MTA to divert that money away from bureaucrats' pockets and paying off special interests and have it go to infrastructure instead. This is the tax burden. Everybody needs to see this. It's too small. And I don't think it lets me zoom in. Sorry. Everybody needs to see this, the tax burden. Where do you fall on this map? This is by state in 2024. New York as a state is at 12%. They're the maroon color. They're the highest tax burden. So why are you taxing New Yorkers more? Why are you charging these people more money? This is insane. New York has gotten to the point now where it's almost impossible for people to even live there. What else are you going to make them pay for? So there's that. They're the highest tax burden. And now you want more money from New Yorkers. You'll see the states not too far behind it. Maine, Vermont, of course, Massachusetts. Of course, you know, we would be there. Rhode Island, Connecticut, basically the Northeast. And then you have California over here. So everyone pay attention to this. Don't forget about Hawaii, because you need to ask your representatives, why are they doing this? Now, Roger said this. He was responding to, this is Julia Salazar. So she's one of the senators. Congestion pricing implementation is urgent. It has already taken too long. It should not be further delayed. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. Isn't this one of the progressive senators that New Yorkers voted for? One of the progressive politicians that said they cared about the workers? Here they are voting against the workers because that is who this is going to hit the hardest. So one of the things that Roger said here, he said, Senator, why are you and your colleagues so intent on taxing working class people? We put you guys in office to tax the rich in Wall Street. Whatever happened to invest in our New York Act? That's where you were supposed to get the money from, not us. Instead, you turned against the working class New Yorkers. Does everybody see what's happening here? All of these social democrats, all of these politicians that are a part of DSA or so whatever you want to call yourself today, social democrats, DSA, socialists, but within the Democratic Party, one of the big things that they continue to stand by is that we are for the working class. Here they are implementing policies that work against the working class. Is anybody going to hold them accountable for this? These are your representatives. These people should not be reelected. Here's another one. Some of you may be familiar with Jabari Brisport, probably one of the more popular politicians. Jabari Brisport is a socialist. Thought the congestion pricing decision was bad? Wait until you hear about the tens of billions in money the governor denies working class New Yorkers every year by blocking new taxes on the rich. Roger responded and said, that's what you fight her on. Do not come to us to force us to get more taxes. If she does not want to tax the rich and her big money donors on Wall Street, then it is time to push Jay Sanders, New York, the New York Public Banking Act that would allow municipalities like New York City to charter their own public banks to take in municipal taxes as deposits, aka tax deposits, mark them up, then issue out as lines of credit to finance infrastructure, creating jobs in infrastructure, generating state tax income that is used to pay back the loan to the bank that created its job in the first place. So again, Roger has actually met these politicians. It's not like they don't know who he is. These are people he's actually spoken to in person. Roger has attended these meetings in Albany, New York. It's not like they never heard of this guy. So again, ask yourself that question. Why are these so-called progressive Democrats, socialist Democrats, or whatever they are, why are they voting against the workers? You thought it was bad when it was AOC and the railroad workers. That was nothing. That's nothing compared to what's happening on the local level. So you got the local DSA politicians also working against the workers. How is that okay? I don't think it is. They have the money, fam. They have the money.